Welcome to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast, presented by FantasyGolfBag.com, your number one source for the most in-depth PGA Tour analysis in the daily fantasy and sports betting world. Each week, our experts will discuss everything you need to know, from the course preview and key stats to top plays, fades, and strategies. Whether golf betting, grinding out cash games, or playing for a big GPP win, our team has you covered. Let's get after it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I'm your host, Redkacheek, joined this week by Skylar of the Golf Gurus, and we're here to recap the U.S. Open and then preview the Travelers Championship up in Connecticut. So, obviously a fun week. Sky, I'll go ahead and bring you in, man. Your boy Brooks had a good run there, but obviously the Woodland ticket was pretty big for you as well, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Drew. Yeah, U.S. Open's one of the most special weeks, out there. I loved what they set up with Pebble, and it truly, the more I thought about that course setup and what they could design, without the wind coming in to play a defense, that was the best players in the field up there on how well they played that last week. So, of course, love to see Brooks make his run, but having the Gary 125 all the way back from January and seeing, what a special moment for him and his family after, the tough loss of their child 2 years ago. It was just really special for him on Father's Day to do that. And he held tough. Those Sundays that he struggled so much, what was he, 0 for 7 with a 54-hole lead going into yesterday? That's stones to be able to do that on the Sunday of the U.S. Open and to do it like he did with some of those saves. That was a special day.
Yeah, it was almost like it was made for him because even Saturday, he had the one bad lie and he basically shanked it out and then chipped it in from, maybe 30, 35 feet. It just, you start to think probably things are aligning for you for that to happen. And honestly, he handled it well. He seemed, as far as I could tell, he never really seemed nervous about winning. It was just like, I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. I'm good enough to win. I'm playing well enough. Gonna try to get the job done. There just never seemed a point where, man, he's starting to come off the rails a bit and he leaked oil coming in. It was pretty solid.
For sure, and that was from Friday afternoon on, It was probably a good thing that Brooks was in the group before him, because having to play with Brooks on the Sunday, and getting to play with Rose, who, it was about time that luck wore off on Sunday. So, yeah, it was steady as can be literally all weekend. I think it got down to one stroke as they started the back nine, and that's when things get a little tense. And the crazy part is, you think about Brooks. It was virtually the same thing he kind of did at the Masters, where he was so good tee to green and just couldn't find the putter consistently. And he did get a little weary off the tee late down on the stretch on Sunday, but he literally could have won 4 majors in a row. Without a doubt, first, second, and the 2 seconds were because his putter didn't come through. That's crazy.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised. I think we'll obviously talk about Brooks this week, but going to that major and honestly using some of the new stuff that we're offering, some of the new stats, it was at least easy for me to make the lean towards Brooks. And he was lower owned too. From a DFS perspective, you talk about Brooks in a major, which is one narrative of its own. And then you look at the recent form and some of these key stats that we were using versus a DJ. Rory played okay, but Brooks stood out to me. And then when he started making the charge, I was like, this is unreal. This dude, it's still mind-boggling to me how he approaches majors the way he does. I was having a conversation a couple weeks ago, and it's man, Brooks in majors is so good. And I was like, yeah, obviously he says he doesn't care about week to weeks. Normal weeks, and majors is what you base your career around, which is true. But if you're so good, wouldn't you just want to dominate like Tiger did in the 2000s and just anytime you tee it up, you win? I understand the thought behind the majors and really doing something different, but why not just try to move that over to a normal week?
I just don't think he cares enough, which is crazy.
It's crazy. That I just don't get it.
How can you be that elite? That's okay, I'll show up, four times a year, and I'll just, I'll show up.
Yeah. And which is easy, I guess, from that perspective. 4 weeks a year, you think, all right, these 4 weeks are just I am 120% in these 4 weeks. But then the other weeks you tee it up, what are you doing?
Sure. It's But like to be able to show up in the moment of doing that is crazy, and even for those that care everything about majors or barely play other than the majors. You know what I mean? Like Tiger hasn't played a ton outside of the majors, and it's still difficult to ask to come in and perform like he did. And to your point, like I'm not sure we're ever going to get Brooks at lower ownership like we did this past week, but I don't know why we did last week either. You know what I mean? Like in the high dollar stuff, he was 3%, 3.5%.
Yeah.
Like I understand from a statistical standpoint that there might be some things that over a long like scale that he definitely doesn't measure up to those that are priced around him. But at what point are you just going to accept that this is what he shows up for and it's what he's going to do, and his strokes gain approach has literally been laps ahead of everyone else at the U.S. Open for 3 years in a row? Like, there's no doubt. And now he's going to go to Portrush, which we'll talk about later and in a few weeks. But his caddy's from there. Like, literally played thousands of rounds there. I saw a quote. I think it was Coley put up a quote that said, like, Dickie already said that, yeah, we've got this one in the bag at Portrush. So I mean, like, it's crazy. So hopefully people will continue to not play him. Hopefully they'll price him at like 12.5. Next major. I would love that because I'm gonna keep going there, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I don't think Brooks' caddy gets enough credit. So his caddy is obviously Ricky Elliott, but dude, I mean, there's a certain sense of managing your player on the PGA Tour, but for him to he just doesn't get press and he doesn't get interviewed very much, at least from what I can tell, and that's something I'd like to know more about. Like, dude, like tell me a bit more about this week when you're with Brooks at a major versus a normal week, and how you guys are approaching. Like I want to hear more about that stuff.
For sure, that would be interesting. That'd be very interesting. I'll have to look and dive in to see on Twitter if there's any interviews with him. I know he did one after the PGA Championship, a smaller one. I'll have to dive in, but. Yeah,
and especially like after the fact, like there was an article several years ago with Stevie Williams, who was Tiger's caddy for a number of years, and he was talking about Brooks back then. Like, there's no one that makes us sound like Tiger besides this one kid, Brooks Koepka, and Brooks was on like the European tour at the time. Like, that's really cool in my mind, where a guy that's been in like front row seat to Tiger's phenomenal performances and can call out a Brooks Koepka back then. And now he's done all this. Like, I'd love to see it from his caddy's point of view. Like, just give me some stories of, this shot here, he just said, I'm going to go at it from 240 with a, 4-iron, and he didn't even think twice about it. Like most players, okay, let's think twice here. Let's play to the safe side or something. But I'd love to hear some stories about Brooks just being nails on some of those other shots that we don't really know the behind the scenes between their conversations.
Oh, absolutely. And the crazy part, too, is, like, he really wasn't a winner, like, before 2 years ago. Like, he won in, obviously, Phoenix. He won an event in Europe. But his dad was even talking about, like, kind of his growing up. I think it was this week they were talking about. And he didn't win until his senior year at Florida State. Like, he wasn't even – and I know you know a little bit about more of, his background playing and getting to play with him. But, like, it's just crazy. And, obviously, that – I don't want that to overshadow Gary and how special that was from his standpoint. Because, like, I was thinking about it more. He has shown up quite a bit. If you think about 3 of the last 4 majors, he was right there at the PGA Championship last year, held the 36-hole lead, set the record until Brooks broke it for the 36-hole record, or 36 low score at Bellerive. And then I think he was just mediocre at the Masters. And then he came out and he sneaky top 10 at Bethpage, and then all of a sudden wins here. You know what I mean? He'd been trending in majors too, so that's something. And even Ches, he was top 20 at Bethpage, so I might start looking to dial in a little bit more of this recent major kind of performance, because I think if people have shined in that moment, that they feel more comfortable coming back there the next time. So I'm going to start to dive in a little bit more on major specific performances.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, let's we'll obviously dive into a couple of those guys, review we get back this week, but a couple shout outs real quick before we move on to the Travelers Championship. Of course, we had another Millie Maker sweat last week. Bill Golfboy, a fellow fantasy golf bagger, finished second in the Millie Maker, and then he also won the $10 return to the beach for $70K, so almost $200,000 won on Sunday, and he was winning the Millie Maker actually for the majority of Sunday, and then the last 2 holes, I think, Rose slipping back, and I think Webb had a bogey there, and he ended up finishing second. Man. So literally an $800,000 swing, but pretty awesome for him to enjoy that. And then, of course, a couple other guys like Chris Ferreter last week had a big week, won the $15,000, and then this week again won about $11K off of about $2,000 in entry fees.
Baby swag
is right. So excited for that. Hopefully that was something I announced on Sunday for Father's Day. So hopefully I got some baby swag. We got our first child due in December. So extremely excited for that, and hopefully all the baby swag that comes with it.
Absolutely. Congrats to you.
Thanks, man. Should be a whirlwind fall and winter. But, yeah, excited for that, man. Obviously, the Millie Maker last year winning was awesome, but to see, like, a fellow member of the Fantasy Golf Bag have to sweat that out, it was unreal. Like, obviously, you know my story. I didn't get to watch the whole thing. For him to have to watch the ups and downs, I just cannot even imagine. So, whew. Hopefully we get it at the British.
That's as good as it gets. Yeah, no, I agree. And I saw they brought back the $20 Millie for the British. I kind of liked the 100 personally.
I did too. Yeah. Maybe they'll just do that for the U.S. Opens. I know last year for the U.S. Open, just a real side note, I don't think it filled. So maybe this year they were like, let's just do the 100. We'll do a smaller pool, smaller field size, and get that filled. And it barely filled at time.
Barely, yeah. That was close.
So we'll see.
I wasn't surprised to go back to the 20, but it's just nicer if you're ever going to offer that top prize to have a smaller, field to compete against. But
exactly,
I get it.
Yep. All right, man. Let's transition to the Travelers Championship this week. We got a course that they've played for a number of years here up in Cromwell, Connecticut, TPC River Highlands. It's going to be a par 70, fairly short, 68-41. So we'll get into some of those course specifics. But overall, this course is a pretty low-scoring endeavor for these guys. Last year, it was Bubba Watson that won at 17 under. And really the whole final day was pretty low-scoring. Stuart Sink finished second, shot 8 under on Sunday. Bubba shot 7 under on Sunday. And I'm pretty sure it was either last year or the year before. I think Bubba shot like 61 or 62. On Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of low scores can be had. If you look through some of the key stats, at least for the golf course and how it's played, it's really not long off the tee. I mean, guys wouldn't say it's less than driver like Pebble, but it's certainly not a driver heavy course. Driving accuracy is pretty high. It's going to be over 60% fairways hit, and green regulation is also pretty high, almost 70% green regulation as an average. So overall, just an easy golf course. They're back on bent grass greens, so if that's something you like to look at, putting splits, certainly important this week. The last 2 weeks were POA, which most people don't like. I mean, even last week I heard people talking about not playing Brooks because he's quoted as saying he doesn't like POA. But honestly, like we were talking to our members about this, no one likes POA. Like, if you ask me if I liked a hole with water on it, I'd say no. Doesn't mean you can't play a hole with water well. So there's certainly coming back to bent grass is going to be very nice. Most of these guys are going to putt pretty true on POA. There's not terribly high splits. So overall, just trying to hit strokes gained approach like normal. Green regulation is not as high as it was last week, but I'm certainly looking at birdie or better percentage over the course of the year and the recent 5 events. Bogey avoidance I like to use from a relative standpoint. So I know you use the weighted bogey avoidance stat. I like using that for recent form, getting guys that aren't making a ton of mistakes. So even if they're not making a lot of birdies, the bogey avoidance kind of encompasses, hey, they're not very far off. Like, it could be because they're not making a ton of putts, but at least they're not making a lot of mistakes and making bogeys. So I do like using that. Off the tee a little bit, but not much. So overall, again, it kind of comes down to strokes gained approach and a couple of those other stats like the birdie or better, bogey avoidance, stuff like that. What are you seeing for the golf course?
No, I'm really on the same side as you. It's tough to really, I think, dial in on a course that's pretty bland as this. I mean, not to say like it's not going to be like, because last year's Sunday was great with Bubba making his track, ended up winning by 3 over Casey. He had shot 63 on Friday last year is what it was. But no, don't think you have to really get too crazy with this. Those you have seen your point. I think off the tee does matter. It's just it doesn't have to be bombers. But we did see Bubba and JB and Tway in the top 10 last year. So you can be long and bring it to your advantage and turn it into kind of a wedge fest. But yeah, 6,800. Like you need to birdie. What we have winners of -17, -12, -14. You know what I mean? Like there's low scores to be had here. So I'm not going to do anything crazy. The only additional stat is one of our newer ones that we've launched here that I'll be looking at, especially that's a par 70. Is I love dialing in on the par 4, like strokes gained tee to green or par 4 strokes gained ball striking. Really seeing again, and this could be at a Pebble too, where if they're struggling putting on the POA, or if they struggled the week prior at Hamilton on the POA, just looking at that par 4 centric just strokes gained metrics is something I haven't seen anyone else really put in there for their members. So for our members to be able to look at that, I think that's kind of an interesting angle in addition to everything you said.
Yeah, I will note too, like as far as the par 70 and the yardage, like it's being short, but there's a couple short par 4s, so it doesn't mean the whole course is going to play short. There's a par 4, it's under 300 yards, so it could be drivable for some of these guys. And there's another par 4 that is 340, so I actually don't recall. It's number 2. It's 340, but I don't recall if those guys even attempt to drive it. I don't remember that hole. But a lot of these other ones are between 420 and 460, so it's not exactly going to play short for the entire. It's not just a pitch and putt.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah, pretty balanced. Alrighty, let's dive in. We'll obviously start at the high end. We'll use DK pricing as our metric, work our way down from Brooks starting up at the 11.8K price tag all the way down to 6K, and we'll try to hit our high and low points throughout the different price ranges. So I'll let you lead off because your boy Brooks is sitting there at 11.8, and obviously for most people, and certainly mine, he's 100th percentile in almost every single metric, but I don't want to play him this week. Maybe comfort me a little bit for wanting to go Cantlay over Brooks, or tell me why I'm wrong.
I mean, so I'm just looking at our extended approach numbers from last week, and again, it's if you're gonna have to do the separation of it's not a major. I don't play Brooks unless it's a major. That can be people's viewpoint of it, but I mean, the dude hit 40% of his shots within 18 feet last week, 54% of them within 24 feet of the green or feet of the hole last week. Cantlay was almost half of that when you look at 18 feet. And I'm not going to be here and just like nitpick week after week, but I don't know, man. Like I continue to think and hear Brooks say that he's going to try to bring this to the regular tournaments that he's playing in, this mentality. And he really hasn't done it yet. Obviously he won the CJ Cup last fall, but I think he can, again, overpower and dominate this course. I do think he's a class above Cantlay, a class above everybody in this field. And for $500, and truthfully, probably lower ownership because people are, once again, they might not go back because of the narrative. That is true. The narrative has been true. But if I see myself not playing somebody above or not playing Brooks, it's probably because I'm going to go more balanced overall. So to me, even above 10K, that's where I'm looking at is Brooks, or I'm going to drop down to a balanced lineup.
Yeah, I can see that. My biggest thing, obviously the price tag is one, but I think there's enough values this week that you can certainly start up high. The win equity is not as big as it was at like the RBC Canadian Open, where 50% win equity was in like the top 6 guys. I think right now it's right around 45% for like the top 10 guys. But that being said, like Cantlay played really bad Thursday, Friday, and he picked it up on the weekend. So like even using the stats and trying to be unbiased against a Brooks in a regular field event, I know his stats from last week look phenomenal. But I think Cantlay was playing better on Saturday, Sunday, and that was kind of my lean. And if Koepka's 11.8, and we'll see where ownership shakes out. But man, I was probably one of the last ones to really get behind the whole Brooks major narrative. Like, look, if he can play well in majors, he can play well in regular field events. But it just really hasn't been the case. And for this event at least, it seems like a Cantley type of event. Brooks has had some decent finishes here. He finished top 10 3 years ago, 20th, top 20 last year. But man, it's really tough for me. I think it's either I'm playing Cantley or I'm playing neither. I'll probably say that. I just don't see the need.
So I did. So if you go in like the round by round, so if you just dial in on Saturday and Sunday combined, so Cantley did much better on Saturday, Sunday. To your point, he really grinded to make that cut. It was scary because he bogeyed the last, but he gained I think it was like 4.5 strokes gained ball striking over the weekend, which he lost 2 strokes combined on Thursday, Friday. He really saved himself with his putter to make the cut, and then found it over the weekend a little bit. However, still, if you look at Brooks, he gained just over 5.5 strokes ball striking on the weekend. So I mean, he did keep it. Yeah. It was more he just couldn't catch Gary. But no, I think it's again nitpicking. I still am going to hold strong to my bias with Brooks. It's tough because I think you could probably get like I just can't wrap my head around Spieth, but you could probably get Molinari at a little sneaky ownership. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I do like him. Like the price tag, I think would jump out to people, and they'll want to play Jason Day at 10K, which I do like Jason Day. Like of the people over 10K, I would probably. My initial lean was Cantley if I wanted to pay up, but I think Jason Day and then Molinari are the only two that I would even consider. And honestly, there's not too many to consider anyways. But yeah, Molinari's fine. He's obviously played surprisingly well last week, or at least fairly consistent. But I think I would lean Jason Day, honestly, over Molinari at 10K even.
And that's not to say when we start getting in this next echelon that those guys, you look at JT priced at 9.8 or Casey 9.5 are playing similar to those guys there, where it could be from that style up. So no, I think for me it's Brooks or I'm going balanced.
Okay. All right, let's hop down into the 9K range. Again, it's so thin, or not thin, but like a very small collection of guys over 9K to 10K. Seems like the field strength is just bunched in there, and then you're trying to figure out where you can piece out your lineups below that. So in the 9K range, you get guys that really played bad last week, and figuring out where you want to go is probably going to be tough. I mean, you got Finau there. Fleetwood played terrible in the weekend. Casey did okay. I think he'll probably be my go-to here, and JT obviously missed the cut. But still looking through JT's stats from the last couple of events, I was really surprised by his performance, and I'm not afraid to go back there. But I think Casey's probably the guy at 9,500. Has a really good course history, so for a course that we've seen this year after year for a while, Casey probably grades out the best for me. He didn't hit a lot of approaches close last week, so like inside of 6 feet, he was only at 3%. But going back out to 18 and 24 feet, he was up there with the, not necessarily the Brooks level, but he was up there in that second tier for sure.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And even in dialing more, it seems that trying to understand these numbers it's just more he's consistent. You look at him leading the field of those that played at the US Open and the positive approach percentage,
yes.
So like that he's consistently and losing or having the lowest amount of negative strokes gained approach loss. Like that's exactly what he's doing, but he's not sticking it close and he's not holding the long putts either. And it's really hard because if I would have picked one person that I could have, been on last week, it would have been Casey. Like I really, really felt strongly about him, but I don't know. And maybe I'm trying to have a short-term memory, and maybe he might be popular again because of how well he's performed here. That has me still intrigued at JT. It does. Like, to your point, in trying to piecemeal again these numbers, it seems like JT is having some incredible approach shots and then coming back with not like a shank, but like he did in the last 9 at Hamilton, where he's struggling all of a sudden, he's missing the green by 30 yards, where he's not having that consistency at all compared to like a Casey. But it's at what point does he find it? And when he does find it at 9.8, he 2 months ago before he was hurt, he's probably priced between Brooks and Cantlay.
Yeah.
And, that's where going back to the well and being early to me on him is something I still feel strong about when he's just a different class. And it's tough because I posted the Open numbers, and I thought I had such value at him at the Open Championship at 25-1 in January last year. He was like top 3 player in the world, looking great. And he was posted at 45 yesterday to 1, which is a crazy number in my opinion still. So I'm going to try to be early on JT and keep going back to the well there. I'm at 9.8 after people tried it last week. It didn't work out. Tried it the week before, didn't work out. I think it's worth it for another chance here at probably lower ownership than those surrounded by him.
Yeah, not to mention like the forgiving fairways, forgiving greens. There's not a big edge in really dissecting the green and regulation number. So kind of to that point against Casey, you need him sticking it. Now, I like the fact that he gained like 62%. He gained on approach 62% of his shots last week. But you can have that opportunity where like, hey, you weren't sticking it or you weren't excelling getting it inside of 10 feet. But if your irons are mediocre, that's a small improvement to start getting it inside 6 feet and having some putts that are makeable. So I don't mind that. But then on that JT side, obviously, this course is pretty forgiving, and on a lower scoring golf course, that's usually like JT's bread and butter. I mean, he's one of those guys that fires 61s out of nowhere. So I like him quite a bit for upside. The other ones there, I haven't decided how many lineups I'm going to build. I'm still trying to like figure out the field and like the way the lineups are going to be built. So like at the RBC Canadian Open, when I started looking through the field through my second and third time through, it really opened up a lot of value that I could fit a lot of studs. Right now, like Fleetwood, Finau, DeChambeau, we'll throw JT in there too. Like there's a lot of question marks around which one of them will show up this week. And it's either play a few lineups and pick your spots or play 20 or 50 lineups and get a mix of all. So trying to figure that out. I might just go with my 3 I have right now and try to hammer my core plays and see how the week goes. Especially the week after a major, you probably don't need to go, jump in head first or anything like that. But it's a really strange field with all these elite guys having rough weeks. But it was a major. Like you still have to weigh that a little bit.
For sure. And it is interesting looking at them because if you run like models specifically for year, 10 tournament, 5 tournament, like we have been doing, you can see that the only person in the 9Ks that has improved from their year to 5 tournament is Casey. Everyone else is in a downward train of if you're looking at the model where, these guys on a year basis, they're all, everyone but Leishman is 95 percentile or higher for me. But then you go in and then there's only one person above 81 percentile, in this range when you look at just the last 5 tournaments. So it's Casey to that point, but I still think people gravitate to him.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd want to have a short memory and just stay with him, but I still think JT can do it, and he's proven that he is healthy.
Yeah.
So.
Who's one guy in this range, just to help the listeners out, that you would avoid? For me, it'd probably be DeChambeau. I just still think he's a bit lost, so I think DeChambeau would be my one guy I wouldn't play if I was building 50 lineups.
I wouldn't play Leishman at 9,100.
Okay.
I can't wrap my head around that price for him with the other guys, and maybe because I never play him, truthfully. But I just think, he's in a different class to me when I look at those guys around here.
Yeah, his Leishman, I actually liked Leishman last week. I thought he was a sneaky price for his skill and his, essentially how he has played the last couple of years in big events and then leading into that event. But he won here back in 2012, has a couple good finishes inside the top 20. So I think that's probably built into his price tag a bit at 9,100. So I personally wouldn't be off of Leishman. I liked him last week for a lot of the same reasons I would like him this week. But certainly it's a stacked range, and you kind of got to figure out if you're going to stand on 1 or 2 guys and fade the rest, or try to mix and match within 20 or 50 lineups. So.
Yep, and I think, I no more expanded for me. I think we covered that.
Sounds good. Let's drop down to the 8K range. It's another one that's certainly interesting, with recent form being a deterrent for me. But I'll let you lead off down here. And Where are you trying to pinpoint your one or two guys?
Man, it's interesting in the 8Ks because I think if you go that above range, at like 8.5 to 8.9, people see the bigger names. You know, you see Bubba, who's obviously a Bubba track. You see Louis after his phenomenal performance last week. You know, obviously Phil, big names, Sneds, who can always pop, Reed. You know, people still were on Reed last week. You saw him snap his club. Like, you know, you're getting the generous numbers for a major champion, but I just don't see his approach game. When I think actually the people in the low eights are probably priced a bit higher than what you're accustomed to. But when it comes to their game setup and potentially, hopefully, ownership compared to those above it, I really like Ches again. I like Streelman. I actually like Charlie Hoffman too.
Yeah.
I think the type of game sits here, and those guys outside of Ches weren't really, you know, in the thick of it, where even if they were, you know, there last weekend, you know, it wasn't anything where that I think is going to have an impact on it of their game here. And, you know, Charlie wasn't there, Kokrak wasn't there, Streelman wasn't there. So, you know, it's just a different type of level of probably focus and commitment there to it. So I'm intrigued at those three, and probably will be avoiding some of the maybe chalkier guys above that range in the AKs.
Yeah, right now I got no one over, let's say 8,500. We'll say Reed and above in the 8K range. Just like you, I think the low end for me is littered with guys that are coming in with good form, mixed with some good course history as well. So like Hoffman there, I like a ton. 8,100 for him, a guy that's playing well and has played really well at this golf course over the years. So for him, he has finished third 2 years ago, 15th last year, and I think he's finished in the top. Yeah, he's finished in the top 26 every single year for the last 7 years. He's played here 6 out of the last 7 years. He's finished top 26. That's probably a better way to phrase that. But Hoffman, I like a ton. Streelman is going to be dependent on ownership for me. So I think he will pop off the page for most people, and his course history matches up with his stats coming in. Obviously, finishing fourth at the Memorial, he was pretty popular. But yeah, Streelman I like a decent amount, but I'm really interested in ownership for him. If he's going to be 18-20%, that'll probably be an avoid, but Hoffman will probably be my go-to, even if he was around 15%. I'm not sold on Reevy, so I don't know if you have any tidbits for me there, but I try to use, especially when guys are playing back-to-back weeks, like Reevy last week, besides the West Coast narrative, didn't really jump off at me. And this week I wouldn't want to just completely flip my thoughts on him just because he had one good week. So anything in particular for Reevy coming in this week that maybe I should take note to besides just last week?
I actually struggled thinking about him a little bit more on Thursday, Friday as he was performing well, because I do think the course actually did set up quite well. I found myself on Lucas Glover, which was very tough to swallow after he missed a 2-footer on Friday that had him miss the cut. But they were very similar setup for last week with the driving accuracy, with just hitting greens, and I think that's going to come into play again. I think you're right, though, from a standpoint of who I prefer. I think I would still put the order Charlie, Streelman, probably even Kokrak, then Ches, which is fair. But, again, if I'm going balanced, I just see myself, you know, probably playing 2 to 3 of those guys in, you know, a lineup where I just think it was consistent last week for what it was. So if you're not into the smaller sample sizes over a long term, it's definitely an overprice for him. I can agree with you on that standpoint. But, yeah. That's more there for it. And to expand even more on Charlie for a second, Axis did a great piece last week about looking into the approach buckets. Me and him have working on the project where, based off of a driver's driving distance over the last year, what bucket they'll fall into, and where, based on that bucket. So if you're hitting it, you know, 289 like Charlie does, where will your approaches be from on this course? And then we're kind of weighting that against against, someone who's going to hit it 272 off the tee, and where they're going to be hitting it, of course, and how they do from their standpoint. And Charlie is one of 6 golfers who's above 90 percentile in the last 5 tournaments, 10 tournaments, and year long, if you look at each of the individual buckets of the approach ranges. So, yeah, I feel most strong about Charlie in this range.
Yeah, I like him quite a bit. Reeve, I think the miscut of Charles Schwab confused me a bit because I pictured it as a similar setup as far as the driver. Like, it's a little bit less the driver for most people, and he missed the cut there. But his finishes prior to that, he was 28th at the Heritage, which is somewhat of a comp course to last week. 18th at the Wells Fargo, which is actually a big golf course, so kudos to a shorter knocker like Ches Reavie for finishing 18th there. And then 14th at the PGA, another big golf course. So just like my thoughts were these shorter courses weren't setting up for him, but it's a tough one to peg. So yeah, I'll include him in the player pool, but I certainly would lean like in here. I wouldn't try to spread out my ownership too much. I really like Hoffman, and I'd probably go Streelman second, but certainly Reeve's on the short list in that range.
Nope, I agree with you.
All right, let's hit down to the 7K. We'll hit the we'll do the high end range. There's definitely some interesting names here. Local favorite Keegan Bradley, who I'm probably going to bite the bullet on and play in a few lineups. But Ryan Moore there at 7,800, Ben on 7,800, and Victor Hovland 7,900, and might as well throw Griot in 7,900. Those 4 guys there, 5 guys, I like a ton. There's like Griot is so hit or miss with his putter, but ball striking stats always line up. Hovland continues to play well, and obviously had good course history going into Pebble last week, winning the USAM there. Ben on had some form, but Ryan Moore is probably my favorite in that high end. Coming in with good form. He doesn't grade out as well for me in his last couple of events, but when I start looking through some of the key numbers for this course and how he's played here in the past, Ryan Moore stands out to me as probably my favorite, but I would certainly honorable mention those other 3.
For me, it's Griot, and the problem is he'd probably be potentially one of the chalkiest guys of the week, which is always scary with him. But his approach game is so good recently, so good. You look at what he did last week, where if we see here, so yeah, he led the field in strokes gained approach, hitting. So this is a crazy number for someone who's hitting, who made the cut, but over 11% of just like 11.11% of his approaches inside of 6 feet had the most positive strokes gained approach. And if you look at the amount of shots, where again it makes sense because he was putting so many in tight, but over a third of his shots, just over a third of his shots, he gained a quarter stroke approach at least, which is above anybody in the field, above Brooks, above JT, above anyone who's shown that kind of eliteness with their irons last week. So people will probably gravitate towards him, which I'm fine with. I grabbed a 70-1 outright on him, which I thought was a great number, and sort of against if you're going to do single entry or 3 max and you want to avoid chalky and you want to play someone else in the range, I think it's a great self hedge for in the sense. So 71 I thought was a great number. But for me, I guess, what do you think people are going to do with Hovland? He was all over the coverage last week. He's going to be owned.
Dude, he's going to be owned.
Right? Is he really better than Wolf?
Well,
we'll talk about it later.
No, Wolf's better than Hovland. So if we're comparing the two,
but you just play them both then?
I'm playing them both.
Is he better than
It's hard to tell too. So there's a couple. When I was trying to dive through this thing, Wolf is very good. There's no doubt about that. He's certainly. It might be splitting hairs if saying he's better than Hovland, but when Wolf won 6 times this year in college, including the NCAA championship stroke play, and Hovland may have won once or twice. I actually didn't check, but even going to the low end, you got guys. This is kind of an aside, but Max Homa at 7,200, who's a PGA Tour winner. And I'm trying to compare to Matt Wolff, who's just out of college. Dude, Matt Wolff is so good. I just it's a very tough comparison because you haven't seen him play with these PGA Tour, quote unquote PGA Tour players. But both of those guys have been incredibly solid. There's no surprise why they're turning pro now, getting this under their belt. It's I'm playing both, and it's trying not to overhype them or anything, but obviously Victor Hovland showed that last week. I mean, that's super impressive. It's a major. I mean, he was in contention almost.
And he led the field in strokes gained off the tee.
Yeah,
with the best players in the world. Like, that is crazy. And he might have the most likable face I've ever seen. You can't not smile when he's had that little smirk on his face.
I got a different take on that. It seems more terrifying to me. Like it just seems like a Chucky doll where he's
oh, that's funny.
like the smile. It's a scary smirk.
Stone Rory, though, he's got that look on him.
He definitely does.
Guys did, so which is funny. But I like him. And then I'd be tough not to talk about. You said it a little bit, Benny, and our boy Hatchman's going to be out there all week at River Highlands, and he's just the biggest Van An truther I've ever met, and he just cannot wait. I think he's going to be out there all 4 days. So if he's got any Van An inside for us,
oh yeah,
he'll definitely let us know. But shout out Hatch for that to enjoy the week. But for me, it's Griot and Victor.
Yep.
And then I like Knox a little bit too. So
oh yeah, I was going to get down there. Knox is solid this week. I like him quite a bit.
Former winner here. He's also one of the 6 golfers that I mentioned. So we've covered 5 of them that are in those strokes gained approach buckets. So we had Brooks and Cantlay up top are there. JT ran into Charlie, and then Knox is the next one that has all of the 90 percentile in the approach buckets. So for me, yeah, I like Knox quite a bit too. And if I'm avoiding Brooks, you can pile in the guys in the 8s and the 7s.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I mean, like the 7K, like I ripped off those 4 at the very top of the 7K range. I mean, honestly, that low 8K, high 7K, you can build 4 or 5 or 6 guys of your lineup out of that range and feel pretty good about it, in my opinion. So the real quick before we kind of move past this high range and we'll hit on that low mid-tier, Ryan Moore, just mentioning him for a second. So he missed the cut here last year, but if you go back through the early 2010 time period, he had a stretch there. He went 4th, 13th, 2nd, 47th, 7th, 5th, and then 2 years later finished 17th. Obviously, he's been playing much better probably the last month and a half, 2 months. We got on him a little bit early at, was it the Memorial, I think? So, and he had the first round lead, and he spit the bid after that. But I did want to point out.
Say, the last time you made a strong stance on Ryan Moore, you told Noto to work him in there, and then he was the first round leader. So
he was. He didn't hold it, but it was certainly a good call. I mean, he was so cheap too, and he's pretty cheap. 7,800. He can win in these type of fields, and he's obviously shown upside. He's got 4 top 7s here in the last 9-10 years. So it's a tough range up there. Not a tough range. It's a good range. It's a good range to pick from. So going down to the low side, we'll dip below Knox. We both like there at 7,700. Joaquin Niemann, I certainly have interest in at 7,500. I feel like this is a good course for him. It's not going to be terribly long. It's certainly forgiving off the tee, which is sometimes his struggle. But green regulation numbers have been elite again, kind of like what we saw last summer, where he had that run of basically top 15s. So Niemann there I like. And then you already mentioned or alluded to Matthew Wolff at 7,300. He'll certainly be in my player pool. Max Homa, 7,200. I do have a decent amount of interest. This will probably be my one. I feel like the last couple weeks there's been one guy that's been spitting out or has been spat out of the new stats that you're providing for us, and that's Kyle Stanley at 7,300. And we can certainly dive into that if we need to. I think Kyle Stanley is a very sneaky play this week. And then at the very bottom range, Sepp Straka, again, good showing last week. His iron play has been pretty strong for the majority of this early summer. So those are the probably 4 or 5 that I really like there.
Yeah, we're very aligned here. I like Niemann quite a bit. He seemed to have found it, again, with those irons, which he was showing when he first came out on tour as one of the best iron players players in the world. When we talked about Wolf, yeah, I mean, I got to, so I live out here in Phoenix. I'm actually making my way to Florida to be down there near you at the end of the month here. But I got to follow Wolf around. I went and watched him all 18 on Fridays there and all 18 on his Sunday. And it's just special to watch, man. Where he puts himself off the tee is just incredible. So, I mean, and I don't know if he has Gankus back on the bag or not, his swing coach. I would love that. I think it's such a good relationship for him and strong. Just trust and belief in what he's doing, having Gankus there with him. So hopefully he's back on the bag. I saw Gankus posting. He was on the range with him yesterday. So maybe it is happening again. But, yeah, absolutely love Wolf. And hopefully people, again, go to Victor too, so we can play them maybe even both, pile up the Cowboys in the lineup. But Straka is my number one if we're going below 7.5. He's the other one, if we're talking about the 6 people that are hitting all that 90 percentile in the buckets. He really made a run on Thursday at Pebble Beach, and then again on Saturday, where I think he shot -3 on the first round. Pebble's first one off, did great. Came at it again on Saturday after having a struggle on Friday. So I think he's a very strong play at 7,100. I'm interested. I do like your Stanley call because his approach definitely was there last week. Did you look at JB's numbers at Pebble last week?
I didn't. I just saw his 3 missed cuts in a row or something like that and kind of skipped over him.
For sure. He put a quarter of his shots inside of 12 feet last week. He missed the cut. He definitely missed the cut. But he made a real run on Sunday, if you remember this last year. And he was right there before Bubba took it, basically from everybody. But JB's sitting there. I guess he has a second here. But, yeah, he's missed 4 cuts in a row. That's probably a bit. Maybe it's something where we can grab him at like 150 to 200 to 1 and might be more interest there. It's probably a bold call to play him in a single entry or 3 max. But those numbers stood out to me a little bit, as well as Stanley's, to your point.
Yeah, I did. So I didn't look specifically at Holmes' numbers, but when I was running through the numbers from last week for some of those weighted proc stats, the guys that missed the cut, I tried to exclude just because the sample would be a bit smaller.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But yeah, certainly, for the main reason, Tulane was up there. Tulane and Holmes were both up there, but missed the cut. So I just tried to compare apples to apples.
Did you see Tulane's round though on Friday?
I didn't actually.
Dude, he had like 9 birdies.
There you go.
It was, and you've been a big Julian Utulian fan.
Yeah.
But he had a crazy round going until he blew it up. But yeah, so that's I love Sepp, and I bet Sepp at 220. I think it was 225 to 1.
Yeah.
And maybe he's just a great always first round leader because he does have a round to him that he always likes to go low on. Let's see if he can mix a couple in this week. I really like him.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. And of course, I'm contributing over at Roto Grinders now, and I had several of these. The value article had 10 guys below 7,700. So you can read that, and there's a couple others down there that are honorable mention for sure. But yeah, that Sepp, last week even on the show with Noto on Tuesday, he was like, yeah, I'm not going to play Sepp because he burned me Sunday. And I'm like, man, in one bad round, you can't do that. And he came out last week and played pretty strong. So yeah, definitely going back to the well with some Sepp. This is probably the highest he's been priced by $600 too, which is pretty funny.
He was like 6,300.
They're catching on
for sure. And then I won't find myself going back there, but Siwoo is one of the greatest Pete Dye players out there. If you look at his Pete Dye strokes gain field differential, for those that have an actual sample size, it goes Jason Day, Cantlay, Fleetwood, Siwoo, Spieth, Casey, Brooks, Bryson. For him to be within that on the course style layout for that price range, where everyone else is 33 to 1 and lower, or 9K and above, it's kind of interesting to see his name always continue to pop up there. But I mean, I think he was pretty dang near dead last week. So yeah. But that's Siwoo.
That is ups and downs, extreme ups and downs. All right, let's hit the 6K range. We'll hit our high points there, and then we'll get these people out of here so they can start building some lineups. So in the very high range of the 6Ks, there's probably 2 guys that I'm really looking at. Morikawa, obviously 6,900, and I think his pro debut was at the Canadian Open, if I'm not mistaken. And you helped me a little bit by providing some extra stats, because I'm not usually one to hop on like a big hype train for these guys turning pro. Like, obviously, Morikawa, Hovland, and Wolf are in a slightly different category because they've been playing in college, which is arguably an elite level for that skill set. I think when it was Akshay Bhatia or something turned pro at the Valspar, and I was like, it's just, he's a junior golfer, and now he's going to turn pro, and people are all hyping him up, and he's talented, no doubt. But like, I feel like the Morikawa, Hovland, Wolf arguments for their competitiveness with PGA Tour players is way different than a junior player that's just graduated high school. So Morikawa, I'm certainly going back to this week at 6,900. Below that, I got Cameron Tringali at 6,700. I think he's extremely interesting. Been playing good, and again, these guys are very streaky. They're going to be ups and downs, so you're just trying to catch them during hot parts of the year. So I do like Cameron Tringali there. Scott Brown, I have a little bit of interest in. He's pretty good on these shorter courses. And then Hank Lebioda, I'm curious if you have a take on him. He's almost been like playing too good, where I had to take a second look at him. He hit 75% of his greens at the Canadian Open and finished 14th. He's been hitting a ton of fairways. He's a longer hitter on tour, and he's 6,700 on a course with forgiving fairways and forgiving greens. I like Hank there at 6,700 unless I'm missing something. But man, he's been statistically, especially traditional stats, have been off the wall.
No, I definitely like Hank too, and he's made, if you look at it, since Farmers, he's only missed 2 cuts, so that's like 8 out of 10 events that he's made the cut. Price down there. He's the only golfer below 7K that has a legit sample size that's above like 85 percentile in every single one of my buckets. Like, I really like Lebioda. And then you talked about it too, Morikawa. Like, he to me, it's interesting. Obviously, he didn't perform to the same degree that Victor did at Pebble, but he had an unbelievable amount of birdies. He had 6 in the first round, which was tied for the first in the field. He went 6 birdies on his back 9 on Sunday to close out. I think he was -5 in his final 9 holes on Sunday. So he really outscored his finishing position last week by a lot. So I like him at 6,900. So him and Hank would probably be the 2. And then I know you did definitely don't talk too much on Akshay. Give him a couple years, bro. But
that's fine. A couple of years. I need to make money now. That's fair.
But there's another guy coming out. It's not his pro debut. I think it's his second pro tournament. But Justin Sue as well. It's interesting just to see the angle of pricing, because Justin Sue is actually, from my understanding, a better amateur ranking than Hovland was earlier this year. Or at least top 2. They fought the top 2. He's better than Wolf, no doubt. And he's 6,400. So he did go out and miss the cut the first pro event he played, which would have been, I definitely played him.
Well, I know he played Memorial and he missed the cut there. I think he played 2 more before that.
Yeah, he missed it at API is what he missed him. So, he's truthfully in that kind of degree with them. I also, if you go way down to 6,200, you can't not be interested in Boo Weekley and his T degree game. Is that correct?
Yeah, I peeked at him a bit. I honestly wasn't needing to go down this far for a lot of my builds, so I didn't attempt to. You have some numbers to throw at me? I'm looking it up right now. His green and regulation's way up.
Yeah, it's just the Boo Weekley game where, even when he came out, he was off for like a year and a half with the shoulder recovery, and he just comes out and continues to pepper greens every single time.
He finished 5th here 2 years ago.
Yeah,
so.
2 years ago. Yeah, back when he was playing. And, again, 6,200, he's made his last 2 cuts. It's not great, but I think he's, from a course setup like this, you just hope you get hot with the putter, and he has familiarity and a strong performance. I think 6,200 is interesting here. And then there's not a price yet, and I don't even really have numbers, but our boy, did you see what our boy did yesterday in the Monday qualifier?
McDaniel?
Dude, how crazy is that?
What did we talk about him, like maybe 2 months ago? when he came back from the Punta Cana event, and like shooting 62 or something like that, like multiple days, is super impressive. So the guy can go low, obviously. If he gets priced in, then yeah, I would throw him on my list.
What's interesting though is, I mean, so he made the cut last week at the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
So he
had to qualify for the U.S. Open and sectionals, and then made the cut at the Open. Yeah.
And so this was his timeline. 2:00, he had to catch a shuttle to San Francisco. 9:00, he boarded on Sunday night, boarded the flight on the West Coast, arrived at 5:30 a.m. in Boston. So this caddy made the 2-hour drive, and this is Monday Q Info on Twitter, who's awesome. Grabbed a McDonald's, the caddy did, steps on the first tee, birdies the first tee on Monday morning, all the way in Boston after he finished up on Sunday afternoon at Pebble. That's just insane to be able to do that. So, yeah, he'll probably get priced in today. He's just a stud. He did qualify now officially for the web.com finals.
Oh, good.
So he'll get his chance at a tour card now if he can perform again there. But that's kind of my overall feel on that. I think, we did align on a lot, but there's just some interesting angles to attack if you want to either play Brooks or just go real balanced, or if you want to go your Cantlay route too.
Yeah, that high end, we'll just say we could include the 8Ks and on up, but probably primarily 9K to Brooks is a lot of it could be dependent on ownership to see where people are leaning, because like that 9K range is just littered with guys that missed the cut last week. So seeing how people will approach that this week is interesting. Obviously, Casey probably get the most ownership, but it's just weird coming off of a major with so many guys in that range that didn't play well, and then the top range guys did play well, trying to see where people go. So certainly keep a close eye on that. Obviously, we'll have our live stream Wednesday night on Twitch, and we talk through ownership, weather, any last-minute thoughts on players, stuff like that. So you can find that at twitch.tv/Redkacheek. And then I guess we're going to start having to do these showdown shows more often, because apparently I think we listed off 6 of our top 10 on Saturday night. We had about an hour and 15-minute show, and I think Hovland was number 1, Brooks was number 2. There's 3 others that all finished inside the top 6 for low scoring for the day. So I think everyone had a good day. Showdowns on Sunday.
Absolutely.
And of course that tool is the showdown model is, we have a light version that's free for anybody to use, and then the custom model is for premium members, but allows you to run your model and get your player pool immediately, which is really nice. So certainly check that out if you haven't already, if you're interested in playing showdowns. But I guess we'll have to do some more of these shows.
And then we can't not finish a show with me and not talk about Across the Pond a little bit as well.
Oh yeah,
we're back in action, man. We're back in action in Europe. So we're at the BMW International in Germany, and DK is back. So it's been, I think, 3 weeks now since we had our last 3 or 4 weeks. We had our last DraftKings European event. The last one out there, if you do recall, the Belgian knockout, our boy Guido Migliozzi with his second European Tour win. What a stud, and the first bet I made of the week is going right back to the well with him. It's crazy.
What's he at this week?
He's 80-1.
Wow.
And I get he's won 2 lower events. I definitely do. But by OWGR, he's top 10 in this field easily. And he's out there getting priced at 80-1. So I definitely hopped all over him. And I've had some interesting conversations just diving in a little bit deeper and working these numbers just from both sides of the pond, so including PGA and Euro Tour events, and talking to some really sharp people who had him as a top 10 ball striker of everybody in the entire world. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. So it's gonna be every week bet for me. I am at 80-1, so I really like him, obviously. And then Alexander Levay, he is known for just being elite in Germany, which is really interesting. You think about people playing familiarity in the U.S. of where they were from or where it may be. But I pulled kind of the strokes gained field differential just looking at those who played in Germany, specific tracks, and he is, of those that have a sample size, the 4th best player in all of Germany when the course comes here. And he's 110-1, finally showed life at the Belgian knockout, making it to the knockout stages. So I think it's a respectable price for someone who is very talented. So I hopped there. Secondly, or third one that I'll talk about too, it's two people that actually did make the cut at Pebble over the weekend, and it's Audrey Arnott and then Justin Walters. So Audrey actually finished second to Guido in the Magical Kenya Open at kind of a similar type of parkland track. And he was like top 3 in strokes gained approach when I think the weekend on Pebble Beach. So that was Thursday, Friday. Struggled a little bit on the weekend, but he's a really good iron player. And then Justin Walters was he just made the cut at Pebble, and another strong ball striking performance for him after he led the field in ball striking in Belgium or in Denmark, and then was top 10 in Belgium. And then both those guys were top 10 in the Walton Heath qualifier in order to make it to the U.S. Open. So their games are definitely in form right now, and you're getting 150 on Arnott and 225 at Walters. So that's my 4 little quick span, but you can catch me in the DK streets as well for Europe.
Yep, and we got all those stats posted on the website at fantasygolfbag.com, so we'll be having all of our stats that include PGA and Euro, and they blend together when they're playing together, and we have them segregated for European only as well. So
yep,
really cool tool there. And hopefully everyone enjoying the new background music that we're having for Busy Office. It's #BusyOffice background noise. No. It's actually not too bad, man. We had to squeeze this in on an early Tuesday, so it's coming out a little bit later than normal. But yeah, man. Any final thoughts from you on this week? And of course, we'll be in chat all week talking through our final thoughts and our articles. And expert survey will be posted probably tonight. So, any final thoughts for you?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think I leave it with this every time, but it's just go Brooks and go Guido. I think those are our 2 brands right there.
Oh man, I honestly thought you were about to say go broke.
Oh,
I thought that was going to be the thing, which was actually going to be pretty cool. I feel like that would be a shirt.
That's not bad. We'll have to get those made up.
Yep. Win a GPP or go broke. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Fantasy Golf Bag podcast. Certainly check us out at fantasygolfbag.com, and we'll be back Wednesday night. It'll be myself and maybe Jacob, unless he's still on vacation, but we'll have a live stream for you 9 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Redkacheek. So you can find us at Redkacheek on Twitter and Golf Savages 2 on Twitter for Skylar. But have a good week, everybody. Enjoy the Travelers Championship. It's a fun one, good golf course. And we're looking forward to seeing some more big screens. Maybe not quite as big as 200K, but certainly some big GBPs out there. So have fun this week, guys, and we will catch you later this week. Bye.